Did you know a 17-year-old Bulgarian is already representing his country on the national volleyball team? Simeon Nikolov has quickly cemented himself as volleyball's most promising young talent. As the son of volleyball legend Vladimir Nikolov, Simeon carries a legacy that could either propel him to greatness or weigh him down. Can a young player break free from his family's shadow? Behind the spotlight lies a personal struggle, balancing expectations and carving his own path. How does a teenage athlete handle that kind of pressure? When you're a kid, you're not supposed to understand pressure. But Simeon Nikolov was never just a kid. While some children were still learning basic motor skills, Simeon was watching Olympians eat dinner across from him. His father, Vladimir Nikolov, wasn't just any volleyball player. He was the captain of Bulgaria's national team. Medals in the World Championship, World Cup, European tournaments, you name it. Vladimir's game was hard-nosed and clinical. Fast tempos, ruthless angles, one-touch finishes. He didn't just score points, he broke spirits. And that's what Simeon saw every single day. Growing up, the sport was just for fun for Simeon, and as expected, they were your usual sporty outdoor family. He started off playing with just a balloon, then into the backyard. Back then it was good times, bonding with family and enjoying the sports without much thought put into it. In the backyard, it was just Simeon and his older brother Alexander Nikolov. That's right, in most families, having one prodigy would be rare. The Nikolovs had two. Alexander Nikolov was the older brother, but not by much, a few years, a few inches, but miles ahead in experience. He would go on to do many things, but more on him later. The younger Nikolov, on the other hand, wasn't trying to play catch-up. He was trying to outlast. They didn't know it at the time, but this would spark a sibling rivalry that would last years. The Nikolov household demanded excellence, telling Simeon early on, give it your all on the court, so that win or lose, you'll have no regrets when the game ends. As time went by, Simeon grew more and more attached to the sport. Simeon was already breaking down matches with his father. He was tracking rotations, reading setter tendencies. He knew what grown players still didn't, and he kept going. The family spent a lot of time in France, and when the family moved back to Bulgaria, he joined Levski's youth system, but it didn't take long before he was bumped up. Way up. By 14, he was on the senior squad, still a boy, surrounded by grown men. And yeah, the chatter followed him. He's only here because of his father. Coaches hesitated, teammates watched, every mistake magnified, every success dismissed. While most kids in his position might crumble under expectations or coast on their family name, Simeon did neither. His big break came through with the junior tournament. Simeon was thrown into the deep end. Older opponents, tighter margins, but that court didn't see a shadow, it saw a spark. He ran the court like he owned it, quick tempos, confident sets, jump serves with bite. The game sped up and he was always one step ahead. That weekend changed everything. No more whispers, and by the end of it, no one called him Vladimir's son. They called him Simeon. By 16, he was getting calls from the national team. The upcoming Olympic qualifiers was screaming for new blood. The same kid who once studied games in his living room was about to run plays against Brazil, facing off titans in Poland, thousands in the crowd. Pressure turned all the way up, and he didn't even flinch. He didn't look like a teenager thrown into the fire. He looked like someone who'd been training for it his whole life, because he had been. While most 17-year-olds were stressing over school exams, Simeon Nikolov was staring down Poland's best hitters. The Bulgarian Federation had seen enough in junior tournaments to recognize his potential. His vision as a setter and his ability to read defenses stood out even against older competition. So they took the gamble, calling him up to the senior national team before he'd even finished high school. Not for a friendly, not for a youth camp, but for the Olympic qualifiers. The decision wasn't unanimous though. Some coaches worried it was too soon to throw a teenager into matches against seasoned veterans. Could they be right? Simeon Nikolov, Bulgaria's youngest setter, dropped into Olympic qualifiers with nothing but raw nerves and raw ambition. The boy amidst titans. On his debut matches, China was first. He barely was able to touch the ball. Then came Poland, 2 service errors, 1 rotation misread, but a lesson in pressure. Argentina, a ghost. Canada, 1 ace. Shaken rhythm, fleeting control. But against the Netherlands, the game slowed just enough. He blocked, he served, he studied, and versus Mexico, it clicked. 3 aces, 1 clean kill. He found his breath again. Belgium, a 5-set war. He didn't dominate, but he didn't fold either. 1 point, 1 presence. He walked off that court with 11 total points and a year's worth of bruising. But this wasn't his rise. It was his unraveling. And from that unraveling came something stronger. By January 2024, Simeon Nikolov made a decision that didn't just surprise people, it confused them. At 17, with pro contracts on the table from Europe's top leagues, he turned them down. Not for money, not for guaranteed playing time, but something most of his peers didn't even consider. He chose college. Not just any college, Long Beach State. A volleyball powerhouse, yes, but also a place that offered something deeper. Space. Space to grow. Space to struggle. Space to figure out who he was, without the burden of always having to be perfect. Back in Bulgaria, the pipeline was clear. Perform early, go pro fast. The system was rigid. Results mattered more than risk. Deviate from the formula and you get benched. There was no time for learning curves, and mistakes, those weren't teaching moments, they were disqualifiers. Simeon enrolled early, spring semester, January 2024, joining the team mid-season. It was a gamble. He wasn't guaranteed court time, he wasn't promised leadership. What he did get was a chance to observe, to adapt, and to challenge everything he thought he knew about the game. Long Beach's practices weren't drills, they were like dialogues. Coach Alan Knipe emphasized autonomy. He didn't want robots, he wanted thinkers. The setters weren't micromanaged, they were asked to solve problems, make reads, and make their own decisions. It was a shock to the system, but one that he welcomed. Off the court, things were just as surreal. Southern California was its own universe. In Sofia, everything had edges, winter pressure, hierarchy. Here, Simeon found himself surrounded by open skies, beachfront air, and students who barely knew what volleyball even was. He joked about the culture shock, but it was real. No one cared that he had national team caps, no one bowed to resumes. At first, it was unsettling, but slowly it became liberating. He enrolled in a pre-psychology program, choosing a path that fascinated him almost as much as volleyball: mental performance, pressure response, self-awareness. It wasn't just theory, it applied to every serve, every timeout, every moment he spent on the court. And for the first time in his life, he wasn't being told who to be. He was being asked who he wanted to become, and it really showed in his game. Simeon Nikolov's serve doesn't just cross the net, it detonates off his hand. At its peak velocity, 135 kilometers per hour. It's among the fastest in the NCAA. And last season, he didn't just lead his team in aces, he led the entire conference. 94 service aces, a Big West record, an NCAA phenomenon. And he did it as a freshman setter. Every game, he deeply analyzes his enemy. Not just team patterns, but individual weaknesses. If a libero panics under floaters, he aims deep. If a rotation traps a shaky opposite in zone 1, he goes for the kill. He calls it finding the player who doesn't want the ball. And it's not just physics, it's psychological warfare. That whistle, that spin sound, it makes receivers second guess everything. Their angle, their feet, their hands. By the time the ball's there, it's already too late. Even when opponents know it's coming, they can't even pass it cleanly. Though his serves aren't his only art form. Where his prowess shines most is in his morale-shattering deception. The pauses, the bait. Watch him set, and you'll see a setter who weaponizes hesitation. He pump fakes a quick to the middle, draws in blockers like a fish on a lure, then flicks the ball outside, untouched, undefended, easy kill. And here's the catch. It's not called, it's not scripted, it's not even rehearsed. He reads it in real time. If the middle bites, the outside's open. If the wing hesitates, the middle gets the ball. You're not just watching technique, you're watching someone freestyle in the air. And then there's the overpass fake, the coldest trick in his bag. When the pass from his team is so high that it can cross the net to the opposing team, most setters scramble to get a set in before it gets into the opposing team for an easy overpass shutdown. Not Simeon. He raises his arms like he's going to set. The blockers react. and then he lets the ball drop. Doesn't touch it, doesn't need to. Because while the defenders are making their way in front of his hitters expecting a set to them, the ball falls like a stone into wide open floor. What's most lethal is he makes you guess and then punishes you for guessing wrong. In his time in Long Beach, he continues to be relentless in the American circuit. Princeton started strong, but Simeon was unshaken. The Tigers couldn't even match the pace. Simeon controlled the court from start to finish. Pepperdine lined up tight on reception. Simeon ripped 8 aces straight through them. One serve drilled the sideline, another kissed the net and still dropped in. GCU brought size. Simeon brought control. Running tempo plays that looked like choreography. Dropping dimes off no-look sets, then torching them with the nastiest spike I've seen in a while. A new monster was born here, the offensive setter, and the world was about to meet him in VNL. After all his development, it was finally time to take stage in one of the biggest tournaments. He was about to face the titans of the sport. It was time to show the world what he was really capable of. Every touch, a calculation. Timing isn't taught, it's felt, and he feels it faster than most can even see it. The eyes don't blink, the hands don't shake. One brother sets the trap, the other finishes it. He walked in a rookie. He left with the crowd saying his name. This is what control looks like. Simeon Nikolov, the 17-year-old prodigy, started hitting every headlines, gaining popularity everywhere, being a massive inspiration for the youth. Finally, Simeon had fully escaped his father's shadow, becoming a legend on his own terms. Although Bulgaria didn't finish well in VNL 2024, placing 14th out of 16 teams, they managed to snag wins against USA and Turkey, some powerhouse teams on the world stage. And the world got a taste of the extreme potential of Simeon. This clearly isn't where the story ends for Simeon Nikolov. Who knows what the future holds for the young star? The decision hanging over Simeon right now is whether to stay at Long Beach State or turn pro early. We still have many tournaments ongoing with him, and in every corner, Simeon is showing us his capabilities. From being that little kid before who trained with his brother and father to hitting the world stage time and time again. The question isn't if he'll shine, it's whether the world is ready for him. Thank you for being on this journey with us. Hit that subscribe button and post notifications. This is just the start of many legends to cover. Let us know what you want to see next.